though he possessed a unique gift of recounting enthralling tales while they waited. He attested that they were not tales but truth, yet the accounts of his adventures seemed somewhat fantastic and unbelievable to most. For precisely that reason, Torgon's stories drew in lines of patrons, and with them their magic cards that worked in place of coin. After a busy time, Agnes announced she would like to do the place up with the extra money coming in. Torgon assisted with most of the decorating, and Agnes, who was noticeably weaker these days, insisted his shield and axe were mounted above the counter on the wall adjacent to his cloak of white fur. After the hanging of the fur, there had been mention of something called a polar bear. Cross words were spoken by some customers, and Agnes had pleaded with Torgon to claim the fur was fake, even though he readily asserted with gleaming pride that the Yoa beast had been very real. At the other end of the tea rooms was where his horned helm and half-plate armour adorned a stone bust sat atop a plinth in pride of place, and either side leather couches which had become much coveted by regulars. It was at the time of the grand reopening of the tea rooms that Torgon very nearly did something a barbarian never would do: weep. When Agnes revealed the sign of the newly renamed Dusky Mountain Tea Rooms, he struggled to compose himself and embraced her with thanks, hiding eyes welling with tears. After the turning of a few moons, the Dusky Mountain Tea Rooms saw a fresh burst of patronage and the need to take on more valued serfs. Torgon became master of the counter and lord of the till. His powers and prowess in the sacred arts of pastry and cakes had flourished with much practice. Not once was he required to flog his valued serfs or slay any unruly patron. For dominion of his realm was clear to all who entered. Though he missed the presence of Agnes, who had grown more unsteady and weaker as the days and moons crept by. It was the very next year, when the winter snows had turned to fat rains and bud and blossom began to wake, that Agnes passed on to bask in the glorious victory of the great tea room in the sky, which Torgon insisted must exist. "There," he had said, sitting beside her hospital bed, "you will feast on cakes of fairies and drink horns of creamy mochaccino with the gods of sweet sprinkle-adorned confection." When he had finished saying his piece, Torgon saw Agnes was already on her journey, and he hoped she'd heard his words of glory. At that moment, Torgon allowed himself to weep. Agnes never had borne any progenies, and all her closest companions had already departed on their own journey to the gods, so it was to Torgon whom she had left her legacy. So there Torgon sat, upon his throne, surveying his kingdom, the Dusky Mountain Tea Rooms, awaiting his friends. Like old times he'd fallen in with the wrong crowd again, a wise-cracking purse, a shrewd sorceress, a ranger of the wild lands, and a battle-hungry barbarian like he once was. The tabletop role-playing group had frequented the tea rooms for some time now, drawn to Torgon, who was an exceptional teller of tales and conjurer of high adventure.